Some kids don't like to hunt. You said your brother never cared for it. I mean, some kids just don't care to hunt.
Bo still had not killed. And so I asked him, like, hey, you want to go out Saturday morning? So he like does this dramatic, impassioned, Dad, I'm just not a hunter. I just have other things that I want to do. And he's like emphatically telling me this. I'm like, it's okay. I'm just offering it, throwing it out there.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. This is episode number 377. You are Matt Drury.
You're Tim Chelsvik. We skipped a week last week. We apologize. Now let's move on.
Matt's apologized, everybody.
Let's move on.
No need to tarry on that topic. We're going to be talking about...
I am gonna, though.
Oh.
We had a guest. Yeah. We were going to finish strong on the Young Gun series.
Yep.
And this guest, he ghosted me.
The guest ghosted Matt.
It was like 6-7 weeks of back and forth. This is pressed for time, I guess.
And this show could have been really good for his or her career.
He or she. Yeah. Not going to name names.
Heretofore unnamed.
I've been disappointed before. Sure. Oh, gosh, yes.
But
I was surely disappointed.
This one cut to the core.
It did, but that's fine. Not everybody can handle the fame they get when they come on this show.
It's fine because you and I have our own stuff to talk about.
Yeah, but we're out of the Young Gun series. We're into regular 100% Wild podcast mode. We are going to finish up with one last turkey episode here, and then we're on to deer season.
Yeah,
it's back.
I'm ready for turkey season to be over. Like, it was a great one. It was awesome, but it's just something about the weather change. It's weird because turkey season spans such a weird period of time. You know, it's early, especially if you're going out for youth season, at least here in Missouri, it's cold. There's no green in the woods. It's just barren. Sometimes you can get snow. And then at the end, you're wearing shorts and flip-flops and everything is green and there's thunderstorms. It's just such a weird time.
Tick picks about all kinds of ticks. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a good season. It was long. That Missouri changing to an all dayer really added a different element. I mean, I'm sure a bunch of states are like, yeah, that's how it always is for us. But man, here in Missouri, it changed for the private ground side of things, and it did change strategy. It did change. Like, I was way more tired by the end of the season. It was a freaking grind.
How often did you hunt till after one?
Oh, so I mean, several times. There was only once or twice where we actually hunted all day, and that was when that first form sweepstakes winner came in
under the gun.
Yeah, like we had to. It's like, all right, this guy came from South Dakota. We have to.
Yeah, we're done now. Anything.
I mean, that's typically, that's how I usually do it. Like, hey, we hunted in the morning, whether I could make it, the turkeys are on the roost still, or just right shortly after. But if I take the kids to school or whatever, if the morning hunt sucked, a lot of times we'd be like, all right, let's go to work. Mm-hmm. And we did mess around a little bit more. Hopped around from farm to farm a little bit more than I typically did. A lot of hunts where, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we were hunting till then. Yeah. But man, half my dirt's 2 hours away. So most of my dirt is. So the day that we did that, did we ever even get into the sweepstakes winners hunt, or we didn't really get into any of our hunts through turkey season? No. Other than the kids' hunts. Mm-hmm. But anyways, so we were struggling opening day. And that farm, the winter wheat, and I, of course, amped it up all promotion long, and it's usually unbelievable. But this year, what was different?
What happened was...
Exactly. I think that early spring really screwed us because the winter wheat was so tall. I mean, you're talking hundreds of acres of winter wheat, and it was thigh high. I mean, it was
over the head of a turkey.
Yeah, so turkeys aren't messing with that, and I had a couple of fingers in the fields where like one had clover in it and where they could go, and historically they would, but basically it cut off their travel kind of patterns that they typically going back and forth across the field from timber to timber. And man, that opening day was tough. And so
Did you hear anything?
not barely on the roost, barely anything.
That makes it really tough.
Yeah, and Aaron scouted the night before, didn't hear shit. It's just like, oh man, we're in for it here. And so we went to where I set my ground blind up, is kind of the normal spot that we typically double opening morning in 5 minutes, every year for the last 3 years. We sat there, didn't hear anything. So anyways, we started jumping around the farm, and Doug, the landowner, was up front at the venue, and he's like, hey man, there's a couple of firing up here. They're just hammering. And so we went up to that side of the farm, and of course that's the hardest side of the farm to hunt. The wedding venue is right in the middle of it, and and the property lines, like we don't have a bunch of the timber, it's just all field there. Okay. And so they were in the neighbor, and we're trying to call them across easement gravel road and into the field, and we saw them like just strutting back, 2 of them just hammering. I mean, they were hot, and they wouldn't come across the road. They just would not. Proud. We could see them like I'm talking 30 yards. If that would have been our property as well, you could have shot them. They were strutting, and Ron, the hunt winner's looking at them through the scope, the 12 gauge, and of course, obviously they were on the neighbor, so we weren't doing anything. We're just trying to. Aaron was float calling up, 60 yards behind us, trying to pull them in. We couldn't get them, so finally we gave up on them, because it was probably 2 hours of us. That's
what I want to be in the mind of a turkey at that point. Like, what is the thing that's going to make you break?
Well, they're used to all the hens running to them. I mean, they're used to not having to come to you.
It's like me in high school.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Something like that. And so it just, it's a certain point of them coming in and going back. And of course they're going strutting and spitting and drumming. And I mean, we changed positions a little bit after they walked away, and we just couldn't get them cross. So anyways, that was the day we hunted all day, and we went and struck, from there was another couple hours to the rest of the dirt that I never in a million years thought we would have had to go up to on opening day. Yeah. And so we started jumping from farm to farm to farm and not having any luck. And that night
we ended up in blinds or just kind of
everything, anything and everything. We were set up against trees. We were like those 2 long beers and the neighbors. We were in a kind of a not even a fence row. Is weird because the way this easement road works through there's one line of trees on our side, and we were in that line of trees trying to get them to cross into the field where we had the decoys, and they just wouldn't come across. And anyway, so that same hunt, we changed positions, and we ended up in the field. There was a bunch of dirt piles that Doug has kind of piled up. I don't know what he's planning on doing with them, but we were hiding behind these dirt and rock piles with the decoys out in the field. Yeah, I mean, and it was so hot opening day. It was like 88 degrees. Crazy. We're just roasting out there in the dark ass camo.
The guys, what was the guy's name? The hunt winner?
Ron.
I was like, this was a prize.
Well, we said it was going to be a full turkey hunting experience, the ultimate turkey hunting experience. And we kind of were joking about that because he got it, because we didn't eat shit all day.
Right.
Luckily, I had some First Form protein sticks and energy drinks, and I had some deer sticks that I brought with me, and we chomped on that, and then we stopped at gas stations.
That's the quintessential turkey hunt.
That's the turkey hunting experience. So we went up to my place. Well, we went to a couple other spots and didn't get any. We ended up on my farm, and I had a bunch of trail cam pictures of turkeys. I felt like they were roosting, going back to roost. So I was like, hey, if we sit here long enough, we'll see some action. We ended up seeing some hens and some jakes, and then we did sit in my box blind there because I have it sitting over this clover field that they would kind of work through and peck in and feed in or whatever. And of course, Longbeard pops up. Aaron, we're shooting the shit. It's hot as hell in that blind, and the windows are all open. It's, but it still was like 80 something degrees that day. And Aaron's like, he looked out the window and he's like, don't move. And Aaron was getting pretty testy with us throughout the day. I think
he's like Scoutmaster Bennett.
Yeah. And he's like, don't move. And sure enough, Longbeard came from where they'd never come from, and was going up to the clover field, caught us, and was out of there. And we waited till sundown, when the legal was over. And it was just a weird feeling. So that was Monday. It was a tiring day. And we get out in the sun. I don't know. I guess I'm used to deer season. It's 30 minutes after sunset, and this is sunset.
Yeah.
And so we get out, and I'm like, man, it's like bright ass daylight. It's like broad daylight.
You're done.
And we're picking the decoys up, and we're heading out of there. But hell, after that, it was a 2-hour trip home, and I was, I think, 11 o'clock by the time I got to bed and back up at 2 a.m. That's turkey. That is turkey season.
That's like, should I just sleep in my truck kind of scenario?
Yeah. But we ended up getting on the same 2 birds the next day that we were trying to suck across the neighbor's property. They were in the same spot. This time we were like, screw it. We're going to go down to, we kind of did an end around and went down around this lake dam that he's got. And kind of, we have one little finger of timber on this side of the property that we own or dug. And so we jumped in there, and instead of trying to call them into the field, we just called them all the way down the timber. That was the neighbor's timber that fed into our timber, that turns into our timber. Sure. And after another hour and a half or whatever it was of calling, and I got to give it to Aaron Bennett, man, because his calling was phenomenal. He was back there float calling. He was moving around. He was kind of scratching in the leaves, and really, I mean, they were so fired up.
Picture.
Yeah. And they came in and finally, I could see him. I was set back a little bit behind Ben and Ron the winner. And, man, they finally came in where we could see him. And I thought, boy, they started kind of, the jig was up finally once they finally got to where we could shoot, and they didn't see any decoys or any hens.
Yeah.
Or any,
that is the time when they get a little hanky.
And they started, they gave us one double gobble, and it's a cool shot because you see it over his gun barrel, like they're in the field, double gobble. And then they come a little closer, and then they're like, oh boy, we're about to die. And they
a bunch of boys out here.
They took off. Ron shot him, boom, dropped him. But it was a poke. I think I stepped it off as like 40 yards or something, but he was shooting a 12 gauge Longbeard XR. So dropped him in his tracks. It was awesome to get him on a bird. He had never turkey hunted before. Great guy, big time hunter, just never turkey hunted. And his story was kind of neat. He's like, man, I was kind of down and out because my pup, his dog, hunting dog or whatever, 14, 15 years old. I forget what he told me. It had just passed away a couple of days before he won that. He got notified that he won the hunt. Okay. So it was kind of, and he's like, I had been thinking about going turkey hunting, and he's like, then I won this. So I got all the turkey hunting gear. Yeah. And he just texted me last night actually and thanked me again for the hunt. And he said that he had gone out and I think he hunts a lot of, public land out there in South Dakota,
which there's a lot of.
Yeah. And he said he had 2, he was calling, he's bow hunting. I think he's maybe a bow hunt only area. Or I don't know. So he was bow hunting, but he called 2 in, they got to 50 yards and then they kind of just stopped and walked off. And he said he spotted something white in the field or something. He put his binoculars on it and it was a damn, just like a house cat. That spooked. Yeah. So, but anyways, weird. Yeah, it is weird. But anyhow, he's excited to get back out there, and now he's hooked on turkey hunting.
Even after his experience.
Well, I think it was better for him to see all the different setups. We had 1 billion different setups in a day and a half, and just to kind of hear Aaron, his approach to calling in different scenarios, and what we would do to go strike different properties and try to crow call or try to get something to gobble, shot gobble. Like he got the full gist of it.
It's the same principle that we talked about with our kids. Like it's better that they have the struggle, the push, the unsuccessful attempts. That way, when they do, they've seen the full diversity of experiences and have worked for it.
Yeah, I had that same experience the next 3 weeks.
But you ended up tagging out.
Yeah, well, not tagging out, but I did
tagging a bird.
Yeah, tagging a bird. Finally up at Dad's this past weekend, the last 2 days of the season. 45 minutes into a hunt, it was quick and easy. But I will say, like, I had gone up there the first weekend of the season. I brought Lola for her first ever hunt, and she's got a lot of energy, total opposite of Cameron and personality. You and I talk about that a lot with Bo and Sophie, and they're different people. And so finally I got her to come with me to go to Dad's to go on our first ever hunt, not just turkey hunt, first ever hunt. And Dad just kept telling me how much gobbling and how, because Forrest has done a lot of predator control up there, and they killed a ton of coons and nest predators. And so the population is just exploded. And he's like, man, I'm not even kidding. I think there's like, 15, 20 longbeards on the farm. And, this area's got 5 and this area's got 3 and over here is 4. They're gobbling their heads off. Their heads are exploding. You got to come up and hear it in the morning. It's unbelievable. And these are the days leading into the day I came up there. And so I've been telling Lola that, and so she was excited. And 2 things happened. His cats had kittens. His farm cats had kittens. She was totally pumped to see these kittens. So we're on our way up there and we're on the phone. I got them on speakerphone and I'm like, yeah, we're real excited to see these kittens, and silence. And he's like, well, something happened to the kittens. They don't know what happened to the kittens. They just disappeared. And so that was the first.
Strike number one.
That was strike number 1. Luckily, the cats were still around, so she got to play with the cats or whatever. But that was strike number 1. And so we get up there, and, we go out for an afternoon hunt on Saturday, I think. I forget what day. Friday or Saturday. Saturday, I think. We go out for an afternoon hunt. And Dad's straight. He's funny. He's a character because he always does. He's like, well, let's save the good stuff for tomorrow. It's always, let's save this. I'm saving this. I'm always saving something.
Great spot.
Always saving the best spots. And Aaron Bennett and I talked about it on the way up. And Aaron's like, he doesn't get it. Like when you got kids like this, like you got a small amount of time.
Yeah, there's no saving anything.
Just to break loose to get up there was a miracle. And so we joked about it, but so we went to a spot right, off the county road.
This is the worst spot I got, but tomorrow it's gonna.
But there was a lot of gobblers over there too, 3 or 4 that had been in this area.
Okay.
So he's like, I think let's start over here. So we're sitting there, nothing's happening, no gobbling, don't hear anything, and it's silent. It's just silent. We're sitting in a ground blind, and Lola's kind of laying in my lap, and she's bored to tears. I could tell. And this is hours into it. And out of nowhere, she just goes, whispers. She says, for some reason, I just want to scream really badly. And we just all bust out laughing.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah. And that's her personality. Like, it was almost like she was caged. And like, it's too silent. I just want to scream, add some noise.
I think that's why people call too much. Because you just got to you feel compelled to do something. Yeah. Make some noise.
Well, Dad will not call too much. He is the exact opposite. He barely calls at all. And, he's got his reasoning, I guess, of why certain times of the season he's calling a certain way, but he doesn't call a ton. And so she was getting bored. So that night, we stay up and, we forced, I think, smoked some brisket or something, pulled pork, something. And we had some people over and we had a good time. And I probably kept her up too late because then it was that night, I took her to bed and she starts kind of tearing up. She missed her mom and all that. And then she's like, I'm never coming back here no matter what you say.
You sold me a false bill of goods.
And I was like,
sir.
Tomorrow morning, Papa Terry says that we're going to a spot where they're going to be gobbling like crazy and it's going to be awesome. Before. She's like, you keep saying that. So I woke her up that next morning and I woke her up saying, today's the day they're going to be gobbling. She's like, you keep saying that.
You liar.
Yeah. So we get out there and it sucked. They gobbled a little bit, but it sucked. And
did she react to the gobbling? Like, could you see it?
It wasn't close enough. As far gobbling is the problem. If it would have been pretty close and it would have been, we maybe would have been able to spark an interest, but It was tough. So anyways, it was just ended up, we jumped around from spot to spot on the farm, and he started putting us in box blinds so she could kind of be a little more vocal and walk around in the blind and all that stuff. But it was funny because he's notorious for falling asleep in blinds, and she just screwed with him all day, tap him on his hat and poke him.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. So I just thought to myself, man, if this was Cameron or me when I was a kid, he would have, but he took it. He just let her mess with him.
Grandkids are a different story.
Yeah. Well, the girl, the granddaughters are a different story. He was pretty rough on the boys, but all the girls, he's always, they got him wrapped up.
Push over.
Yeah. So anyways, that was the experience with Lola.
So odds she'll go next year.
I think I could, convince her again a year later, but I don't know that I'll convince her to go deer hunting. Like she was definitely like, this is
sore
stupid.
Subject right now. Yeah.
I'm never going back. And I'd bring it up for the next 3 weeks here, 2 weeks, through the season. Like, hey, I'm going to go, you want to go out with me? And she'd look at me kind of like,
you serious?
No, no way.
Was it last Thursday night or whatever? We had, Sophie had killed, I had killed, and Bo still had not killed. And so I asked him, like, hey, you want to go out Saturday morning? I know a spot where some birds are gobbling. And his thing right now, he's got this great group of buddies in the neighborhood. They love going down to the creek and messing around down there. And like, they've got a full social calendar whenever school is not in session. And he was thinking, I want to play on Saturday. So he like does this dramatic, impassioned thing like Lola did. He was like, Dad, I'm just not a hunter. I just have other things that I want to do. And he's like emphatically telling me this. I'm like, it's okay. I'm just offering it, throwing it out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to discover your identity right now in life.
We talk about that a lot. It's like trying not to put push our values onto them, and they'll come around to it. Some kids don't like to hunt. You said your brother never cared for it. I mean, some kids just don't care to hunt. So
Bo is very conditional. It just depends on what else is happening. If there's a better option that he
FOMO.
can jump into. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. But so my buddy Tony Cantrell invited me up to his place in northern Missouri because I'd had some like really close calls archery hunting that first week, like a lot of great encounters. But the properties I'm hunting on are so small in suburbia. It's like they could be 30 yards that way, kind of like your scenario out on your under your lease, but it doesn't matter because they're off limits. So he invited me up there. He's like, there's birds all over the place. It's crazy. And so we're up around New Boston. And so we drove up Friday after work and stayed at a really interesting motel where they have like an on-staff tarot card reader.
Nice.
She just lives there.
Did they have a vending machine with meat?
Ooh, they did not. Not that classy. But I was like, man, should we go see the tarot card reader to see like how tomorrow's hunt's going to be? But if a tarot card reader, like a fortune teller, is having to live at a motel, can she really tell the future? Because you would think
future's glim.
Right. Apparently for her. But we hunted pretty much all day, like from sun up to sundown on Saturday, and was all over his farm. Heard a lot of gobbling in the morning. I called into Jake, and Alan was kind enough to let me borrow his shotgun. So I'm like, I'm not screwing around here. I want to tag a bird, and then we can get fancy with the bow. So I brought the 20 gauge. And called the Jake in right off the bat. It almost walked over Tony's legs because Tony was to my left and he came in from the left. It was kind of cool. And we heard some birds, but I had never experienced hunting in a scenario where the way Tony's property lays out, it's kind of like a rectangle and the tree lines are on the edges of the property. Sure. And so you can see, usually where you're hunting, you can see the other ground around you and they lease it out. I've never seen more turkey hunters in my life.
Oh boy!
On other properties, like
that's tough. They're in camouflage.
They were driving around on 4-wheelers, like 3 and 4 people sitting on a 4-wheeler, getting dropped off at this location, and then moving down the road to this location. We saw a gobbler decoy and some hen decoys out in this big green field down this bottom. It was crazy because the neighbor to the east had this big creek bottom that was lined with a big chunk of woods, and you lost count of the gobbling down there. I mean, there were over a dozen birds gobbling down there in the morning.
Makes it fun.
It was really cool to hear, but also you knew they had to get through Death Valley before they get to our property, where we'd even have a chance to hunt them. So Tony has ADD and he likes to move. And when the property lays out so big like that, I was like, man, we have to be really careful about how much we're moving around here. They're going to see us before we see them. So we heard some birds and he had a bird show up on cell cam. So we jumped over a ridge and tried to get down close enough where we could call them. And it was super, super windy that day. So essentially no real encounters that day, but I brought some muddy pop-up lines and I set one up on the east side of the property. I was like, we might come back to this and hunt this later this evening. It'd be nice to have some options for the next day. Well, we kind of fell back to that location, and sure enough, we heard 3 birds going to the roost on his piece. He had a finger of woods kind of in the center of his property. Heard 3 birds go to roost there, and then the whole Jurassic Park, there's a herd of them down in the creek bottom on the neighbor's piece that night also. So it's like, this is the place we got to come to the next morning, Sunday morning. And so that's what we did. And sure enough, we heard tons of gobbling. Thankfully, there was no one hunting Death Valley to our east. Like there was no one there was no one between us and the creek bottom, which was amazing because we saw birds in that field. We saw hunters in that field. They just, I don't know if they went to a different spot or what.
Church.
Let's hope. But they, so we heard the birds gobbling that were on the roost on Tony's piece. They were gobbling that morning, and then the birds in the creek. And that's, before sunup. Good spot. We sit there, we don't see anything. We still hear gobbling. And then about 7 o'clock, the gobbling kind of dies down, as it often does, and it kind of gets quiet once they hit the ground. And so we're sitting there, and I don't know, maybe it's 8:30 or so. Nothing's happening. And Tony's like, I got to take a leak. I was like, well, nothing's happening, so might as well. So he unzips the back of the blind, and we bumped the blind up against a big cedar tree because we were on this it's like a little bump out of the tree line that kind of oversaw a fence line and an old road that separated our property from the neighbor's property. So it gave you a nice view down the tree line. It kind of put us up on a little rise where the decoys would have good visibility. So he's behind the cedar tree that's adjacent to our blind, taking a leak. The back of the blind is unzipped, and I'm just kind of standing there hunched over with the gun because the blinds are always just big enough to where you can stand up but not stretch. And so I'm hunched over, and I'm looking at the decoys, and I see a hen starting to walk. Like she comes over the rise. The rise is probably 60, 70 yards out, and she's kind of working towards the decoys. And so I start whispering and sure, the back of the blind is open. So there's all this daylight coming in, which is not great. I start whispering to Tony, like, hey, there's a hen out here. Get back in here. Get back in. So he's literally like zipping himself up, trying to get back in. Cause you just never know if a hen's around, what else.
Yeah. What's falling.
Exactly. So he's crawling on all fours to get back into the blind. And I had the left hand position. He had the right hand chair. And so like he's crawling around and I'm trying to reposition myself so I can get seated again and get the cameras on. And as we're doing the dance inside the blind, I'm kind of keeping an eye on the decoys, but I see a long-beard pop out of the tree line at probably 50 yards. He had been following her. And I was like, oh, there's a long beard. And so now it's game on. We don't have time to zip up the blind and back. And the hen's she's starting to sidle off away from she's not coming into the decoys. The closest she got was probably 40 yards. And so Tony's getting the camera on, and I'm watching. I'm calling the bird. He's not gobbling, but he's definitely interested in the decoys, but not interested enough to commit. You're watching their body language.
Oh, yeah.
What are they going to do? How do we get the best shot here? And can we let them work into the decoys? And I could just tell like a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush kind of thing. He's not going to leave this hen for the decoys, but he was going to do a drive-by and kind of strut at maybe 40 yards and see if he could peel one off. And so he gets out to 45 yards, puffs up a little bit, and I let him have it at that point. And so it was game over.
Engaged it all right, huh?
It was perfect. Yeah. Knocked him over right then and there. And so we were both relieved because I don't think either of us wanted to do another all day morning to evening kind of hunt. It allowed us to get home a little early and go have breakfast. Like it was beautiful. And Tony was happy because, you invite someone to your property, especially it was like a 3.5 hour drive. You want it to be a fruitful trip. And so, and he got great footage. He was concerned about that. So it was fun. It was fun getting to hunt with a buddy and share a camp like that.
Yeah. That's the best part of turkey season. The fun, the camaraderie, the camp stuff. That's the real reason I love turkey hunting.
Yeah. And you get to take of it. And Tony had already had a great season. He like army crawled with a fan from 200 yards to kill a bird unopened.
Better not talk about that. That's
Tony's
gonna
get
lit
up.
Well, he won't get lit up because he's not in the public eye. So.
Yeah, he was under the eye of conservation.
That's right.
He was in a big field near this county highway in an adjacent county to where we live, and a conservation agent was making the rounds and saw this drama unfolding in the field, and he just pulled over and watched it. Obviously, like after Tony made the kill, he came over and checked his license and everything. But they were high-fiving each other because it was a high drama. I mean, army crawling 200 yards to get to a bird in a big field. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah. So it was neat to have Sophie killed, I killed, you killed, Cam killed,
Ron
killed.
Yeah,
not a bad season.
Yeah. Felt pretty good about it at the end, but it was a grind. There was, I mean, I didn't hunt every day, but I hunted, a handful of times each week, basically, whenever it would work out. And it seems like for the most part, when it worked out, the weather wasn't great. A lot of east winds, it was windy or it was hot or it was, just, I don't know. The weather conditions for this 3-week stretch were kind of tough, I felt like, but nonetheless, we had several, I can't remember a time I went out where we didn't get on one, but for one reason or another, just something screwed up every time. And that's also part of turkey hunting. I mean, the last few years got kind of spoiled with, good hunts right on opening day and didn't really care about the rest of the season, whether or not we killed or not. It was just kind of the rest was gravy. This year we had to work for it pretty hard. So, you learn a lot. You learn a lot in those seasons too, and a lot of different setups and a lot of, trying to suck them into your spot. And I hunted a lot with Aaron. So he's a pretty good caller, with diaphragm call. And I'm just okay. So it was nice to have him to be able to call. I didn't have to really rely on my stuff too much, which was fine. If I did, I would, but it's nice to have somebody that can amp them up. And that's what, hunting with Mark or Terry or guys that really do it a lot and have, seen every scenario. They just know when to amp it up with the diaphragm call and really get a turkey worked up and sucked in that last, the last 40 yards is what you need, right? You get a lot of them that hang up or 70 or 60 or 70, 80, whatever in the timber and having guys that know what to do behind you, float calling, it does make a big difference.
That's the next level in turkey calling. Cause I think you and I, we can mouth call. We can yelp and cut and
proficient enough to kill something.
Yeah. Depending on how desperate the bird is. but that next level of knowing what and when and having that sense is a real talent.
It is. And I got to witness a lot of it, for my whole, existence, just hunting with Mark and Terry a lot. But in general, I don't know, now that I'm trying to figure out more and more on my own what I got to do to make it work. I'm paying more attention to it, the last couple of years. And it is interesting because even going that next level of kind of pawing at the leaves and I don't know, it's the guys that'll, make it sound like they're doing a fly down or, the wing beats and all that stuff. It's like, that's pretty interesting. It's next level stuff. And that's what I liked about this turkey season was getting to see more of that witness it, kind of learn when and why, and try to put that in the back, your head for next year. So
I went out this past Sunday morning. So I had the last day of turkey season, just as a bonus, go out for a few hours before church. And I had these two gobblers just on a property to the north of me. And I've heard them all season and just have had some close calls, but they've never been able to drag them fully across the property line. And so I, was using my hat to do kind of the wing flap and scratching around, and they would hammer to every call that I made just over.
Makes you feel good.
Just over this ride. I was like, hey guys, that's awesome. But also like, come on up here.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't. And sometimes like I've been hunting with Ray and his brother Marty, who's probably like Ray says Marty's probably a better caller than he is. So you talk about like a master class, like literally Ray on my left, Marty on my right. And there's been mornings where we haven't seen or heard anything.
Oh,
so
sure.
sometimes
they're not in the mood.
It's just good to be reminded that no matter what you do, no matter how skilled you are, sometimes it's just not going to work out.
I love more gobbling turkeys this season, where we just, we don't have time to sit any longer and keep messing with them. And that's an odd feeling, because you're like, God, if we had the time to stay here and keep going, we could suck them in. But I've also been plenty of times where we had the time and we couldn't do it. So where we left them. I
had one bird that never gobbled at all. And the first interaction I had with him was drumming directly behind my blind. Like I probably could have poked him with my arrow. He was so close. And it really confused me, because at first I thought like it was someone's base in their car on the county highway I was near. But he just would not walk around the blind in full view of the decoys.
I had that happen. My turkey that I killed, he never made a peep. We had a more dominant bird that was hammering every once in a while. And this guy comes slinking in from the side, slick back, come into the field, saw the decoys, start strutting. He worked all the way into the decoys or close to the decoy. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, that dominant Tom finally came out and popped out and in full strut. And as soon as our bird saw that bird, he slicked back. He started getting goosey. I think the dominant bird saw us in the blind or something, because we were all facing to the right side. He came from the left. I think he kind of caught something, that was off.
Sure.
And so once he started getting out of there, mine started kind of getting out of there. So I had a quick shoot, but it was, it's like after all the gobbling, after all the, what Terry was saying about the farm, this is a silent bird, but whatever, it was a dead bird at the end of it.
You're relieved to have killed.
That's right. I had one scenario this season that was super strange. So this bird, we go to a piece. It was Aaron Bennett, myself, Zach Plale was in town, and Doug, who is the Marthasville landowner. He actually owns another piece of property kind of close to some of my other dirt. Okay. So we stopped by there and started on that piece, and we were walking down. It's a kind of another scenario where it's a long field, and they got, it's a beautiful farm. I think it was 183 acres, and so there's some timber, and got a little mix of everything. They got a pond on it, and so we're walking. We're heading. We wanted to go all the way to the back of the property. We'd locate call occasionally on the way back, see if anything would shot gobble, and nothing was really hitting. So before we called, we wanted to get to the back of the property or close to it. So we did. Aaron starts calling, or Zach, I forget who, and we hear one gobble, and it's not too terribly far. So we're like, all right, let's get set up. So Aaron stayed back maybe 100 yards, put a feeder hen decoy up so the turkey could, longbeard could see it in the field. Zach, Doug, and I go up because Doug had a tag, I had a tag. We go up, and Zach's filming, and the way this farm was, it was all brush piles against the timber edge. Because, for deer movement, to funnel deer, it was all brush piles that kind of forced deer down the middle of the field. And so we were kind of leaning up against a brush pile. It wasn't a great setup because we were kind of in the sun. The side that we were on was kind of in the sun. And we kind of knew it, but we thought, based on how those other brush piles across the field were, and when there's a pond dam, he'd have to come out in one area, we thought, and walk the pond dam and give us a shot and head towards the decoys. So he's gobbling, he's hot, he's hammering, Aaron's calling him. Zach starts calling a little bit to kind of get him to come not too far to the right, come to our side a little bit. And we hear there's a big dirt pile. It's probably like maybe 10 to 15 feet tall. Oh. And it had grown up weeds and grass and stuff like that. And the last gobble we heard was right behind this dirt pile. Mm-hmm. And so that was, I ranged it after the fact. It was 50 yards from us. Across field, and we're looking around. I'm not hearing anything. We're not hearing anything. I'm looking around like it's go time. Ready to put the safety off. All of a sudden, I hear click, I course it right away. This turkey, this longbeard, got to the top of that dirt.
Oh.
And he stuck his head out over the grass of the top of that dirt to look to see what was in the field.
Gotcha.
A recon mission. And he nailed us. You know, 3 of us stood out. You know, I have never seen that before. I've never had that happen.
I wouldn't have guessed that he would have crested the hill.
And so before we were able to go after the fact, walk over there and see what was preventing him from walking the way we thought he would walk, we thought, well, maybe it was just so much brush over here. He had to go up over the hill. No, there were a billion places he could have gone, and a road, in fact.
He just chose to go
He
up there.
walked straight up that hill. He kind of looked to see what was out there. He spotted something he didn't like, and he ran away. And like, I had just never seen that before.
That's crazy.
It was. He was smart. Obviously, he'd either been hunted before or he's smart turkey.
He'd used that dirt pile before, probably, too.
Yeah, walked straight up the backside of it. It was crazy. So it was just little stories like that throughout the season that kind of kept happening. But anyways, it was a fun season. I was glad it was over when it was over.
Same. Yeah. Ready to move on to deer.
Yeah.
But, so we've got a real wild clip from actually Terry's turkey camp this week.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And hold on. The real wild clip is brought to you by Leupold. Check out the new RX 5000 TBR. The rangefinder for the modern hunter. I think there's all kinds of different features and functions in that rangefinder. You can even use a competitive mapping app. I won't name names, but you can use a competitor mapping app and put your, I guess, plot the waypoint of the range. So if you range, for distances. So that was pretty neat. Next level. Anyways. We have some boos from the crowd. All right, so this is turkey. This is Terry's turkey kill.
Ow.
Play it again. The wad from the Longbeard XR actually hits the turkey in the head.
That's what you call insult to injury.
Yeah.
He's already dead, but then he gets hit by the wad too.
They had some fantastic footage this year. Well, as always, Mark's crew, Terry's crew, they always get some good avian footage. They get the Tacticams out there and get the cool shots and all that. But pretty cool. You ever seen that before?
No.
Yeah.
No, I have not. It's crazy because the wad is arcing and like it's not gonna hit the turkey's head on its normal trajectory, but once the shot hits the turkey, it jumps up and reacts to that, and then the wad's kind of curving and nails him.
It'd be like, you know, you hit your head on a cabinet, and then when you went down, you then hit your head on the countertop.
And it's like a cartoon scenario.
Yeah.
Jeez.
All right.
We got a question of the day this week. It's brought to you by Hunter Specialties. Check out the DoD signature crow locator, as well as the other DoD signature turkey calls. Bo got my crow locator.
Oh boy.
And was practicing it inside the house. Mm-hmm. Scared the bejesus out of my wife.
And I'm sure it sounded great.
It sounded.
Not to mention now he slobbered all over your call.
Yeah. A story of my life. So there was a comedian one time that characterized being a parent as pretty much everything you have is moist and has crumbs on it.
Gross.
All right. This one's from the DoD YouTube community. It's DLFERGO369. Rolls off the tongue.
That's like,
I'd prefer not to.
Okay.
How do you butcher and store your turkeys?
Well, I mean, I breast them out there in the, wherever we kill them at, breast them out. And you probably go and get the leg meat as well. Do you crock pot? Use crock pot for the leg meat? I know a lot of guys will either grind it in a burger or something like that.
I've done both. And last year, I think I put a video on DeerCast of using a pair of needle nose pliers to pull the tendons out of the leg, because they literally are like hammers. But yeah, crock potting, or if you pull the tendons out, then it's easier to debone, get the meat off the bone, and throw it in the grinder and make burger.
Yeah. And as far as storing, like both Cam's turkey and my turkey, once I try to prep them completely before I vacuum seal them. I mean, a lot of guys will just vacuum seal them, or even put them in a Ziploc bag, and freeze them all together like that. Yep. But I like to clean them up just so I don't have the work to do when I'm ready to eat them. So I clean them all up, and get that, what I call the silver skin off of them, and get all of it prepped, and then I'll take the Cabela's vacuum sealer and I'll just vacuum seal them real good and make sure there's a good seal on the actual bag.
Yeah.
And I just lay them flat and put them in the freezer, and I separate them into two. So like one breast and tender and the other breast and tender. And then that way, if we don't have a big party that we're wanting to do all of it at once, or, we can just get what we need out. Yeah. So that's how I do it.
Yeah. And I'll do something similar. The legs and thighs go into one bag, and then one breast and one tender go in another bag, and then the same with the remainder of breast and tender. But I usually just put it in a gallon Ziploc bag because ours don't last that long around the house. The kids love, and it's so nice to have fresh, never frozen meat. So I try to get to it as quickly as possible after the kill. We
did that with Cam's. We had a get together that next weekend, and well, shit, it might have been the next day. I don't remember, but we did that with his, and the kids love it. It's like you deep fry a turkey nuggets. It's hard to beat that.
Yep.
And you can almost not, it's almost impossible to screw it up. And it's so juicy and tender. And I don't even like, some guys will tenderize. I saw Jim Richmond had done that and tenderized his. Hell, I don't do anything to it except make sure and cut off that skin, or that silver skin, because that'll make it a little chewy.
Yeah, if you don't. And then there's a tendon or something that runs through the tender that's nice to pull out or cut around.
Forrest showed me a trick on that. He's like, no, just take your fork at the edge of it, the thicker part of that tendon, kind of twist it, and then just pull it right out. And I had never done that before, so that was super easy.
Yeah. So that's such a great cut of meat. Oh.
Yeah. So, although I will say, like, this is probably a sin to some guys, but when I make them, I just cut them all up and put them together. The way that we make it, I'll throw it in what I'll do is cube it up, and then I'll put it in, what's the milk?
Buttermilk?
Buttermilk overnight. And let it that tenderizes it to an extent. Yeah. And then put it in whatever mix of flour and, seasoning and salt and pepper that I come up with. And I mean, it's always super tender. I've never had any issue.
The sin, I think, with wild game in general is letting it soak in water, because you're essentially like
taking the flavor out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then when you dump that water out, like, you're dumping out a lot of flavor.
Yeah, I had to learn that over time of just figuring it out, because with deer, it's a lot easier to see that because you're taking the color out. Like when you do that with deer, it's like,
meat. Let's go.
Weird. All the redness is out of there. But turkeys, I didn't really realize that because sometimes if you kill it and I got to let it sit in the fridge for a couple days, until I get to prep it or whatever, that's happened to me. So now I try to get to it just right away so it doesn't sit. And then air, I know that affects it. Forrest was telling me that a little bit. If the air gets to that, meat as it's sitting out, open air will kind of screw it up a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, it gets dry.
So that's what I did with it.
Let's do the wildlife word. It's brought to you by PH Outdoors. The PHG series is a true no-till drill that can plant a variety of seeds and blends, even into the toughest of soil conditions.
Yeah, I was seeing Levi Morgan was just using one up in PA, and he was talking about soil conditions and how rocky and tough it is where he's at, and he's like, man, this thing's badass because it's so heavy. The drill is really heavy, so as it just kind of helps, get that seed to soil contact that you need.
Yeah, it seems like all we have around here is rocks.
Yeah. So,
okay, what are the pteralae? Spelled Pteryae. What are the pteralae? I'm a pea psychologist. Are they A, the scales on a turkey's leg, B, a turkey's nostrils, C, the places on a turkey's skin where a feather develops, or D, a group of angry jakes? I think that's a mobile app game.
I have no clue. I'm trying to think of a way to sound it out. Let's see.
Pteralae.
Turkey's nostrils. Scales on turkey's legs.
What are pteralae?
I'm gonna go with A. It's the scales on a turkey's legs.
Okay. It is actually C, the place on a turkey's skin where a feather develops. Bo was really inspecting the last turkey we shot. If you look real closely on the head, you can kind of see it's all, they have these like little spiky.
Yeah.
That's
the little hairs.
Yeah. Like that's a good example of terrelay. You just see like the origination point of what a feather looks like an immature feather as it's coming out. It's just crazy. Their heads have so much character and so much going on details. Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming.
Especially when how they're changing colors and they get so red or white or blue, or it just kind of tells the mood that they're in. Like, that's insane to me.
Fascinating.
Yeah. All right. Any shout outs this week?
Yeah, let's do a shout out. So Dr. Al C, I'm assuming this is Dr. Al Colucci, who's a super fan of the show, says, absolutely love the podcast. Matt and Tim, keep up the great work. I've been following along with the Drury production since 1990s. Their passion and dedication to the outdoors is unmatched.
Well, thank you, Al.
Thank you.
If you want to leave a shout out and have us read it here on the show, go to your wherever you listen to podcasts. This was from Apple Podcasts. It's where most of our listeners are from. And leave a review and a comment. We'd appreciate it. All 5 stars, please.
On the Spotify app, after every episode, we ask the question, how has this episode changed your life?
Do we get any replies?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you let us know.
All right. We appreciate it. The subs, we appreciate listeners. Comments.
We just appreciate.
All right. We got new Rack Pack members. The Rack Pack is a private Facebook group. If you type in 100% Wild Rack Pack, it'll come up. You'll answer a couple of questions, silly questions that Tim came up with. And then you'll be entered into the Rack Pack. And basically, it's just a community where like-minded individuals can make fun of Tim for being on a swing. And, and we get to see, like, through turkey season, all the hero pictures, get some interesting tidbits sometimes from folks and trail cam photos. It's cool.
A lot of great stuff in there.
And I saw, a guy asking about what gun you should buy for his youth hunter. So a lot of good feedback from that. So it's a good community.
Yeah, it's helpful.
I think we're closing in on 3,000 people in it. Ooh. So this week, new names, always a fake one in here. Usually we got Ron Gonsalves. Ron. We got Ron. We got Christopher Scott Panther.
Dang.
He's either a serial killer or
cool.
Dallas St. Clair. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Brick Stewart, who
sounds made up.
Appalled that 5 years, 6 years, 8 years into the...
Better late than never, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Brick. You know what it was? I guarantee you.
He finally listened to it.
He listened to that. I guarantee he listened to that episode that we had Zach from the Hunting Public on.
Oh,
we got a lot of listens and views on that.
Really popular with the Drury Outdoors team.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know they had a Rack Pack
Brick, or a podcast."
Brick, if you're listening to this, you can apologize at any time. All right, the fake name. I'm gonna go with Dallas St. Clair.
Could be. I'm not sure.
We don't know this week if there is a fake name.
These could all be real. They could all be fake.
Matt, do you know? Is there a fake name?
We're going to the boys in the truck here to see if we can get a consult.
I do not know.
He doesn't know. No one knows. All right. Well, we're going to go with Dallas St. Clair. Dallas, if you're real, let us know in the Rack Pack, buddy.
Yeah.
Christopher Scott Panther, you're second on the list.
Oh, Chris Panther. Nice.
CSP in the house.
Well, if folks are still out there grinding away on their turkey seasons, good luck to you. Keep it up. You just never know when something's going to change.
All right. Back into the regularly scheduled content from here on forward. We're getting into deer season. We'll start getting some guests in that tell us how to kill big deer.
I like that. I'm ready for it.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate you. Till next time. Peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.